Part 13. I Can Break the Dimensional Wall. Author, Zhou Jumiao. Chapter 121. In the end, Xiaoruo didn't agree to teach Xiaomeng how to cook. Anyway, she couldn't teach her how to cook. In the end, Xiaomeng could only leave angrily, and kept yelling such angry words as "I saw the wrong person, I didn't expect you to be like this." It seemed that Xiaoruo was going to be hostile for a while again. After coming back from the world of homeowners, Xiaoruo was idle all of a sudden. Bored, Xiaoruo opened the Qt station, and then watched the updated animation of the Qt station. Well, the plot rhythm of Inuyasha has been very stable, and the Little Master of China has just started broadcasting, and the popularity is slowly rising. Xiaoruo flipped through the USB flash drive of her system, and the plot of the cooking competition in the world of Xiaodangjia was also made into an animation. Traditional plot routines. The plot is very compact, from the beginning of joining Ju to go downstairs, and then Xiaoruo winning the cooking competition. Such a long plot, there are only 2 short episodes, and part of it is the clip of Xiaoruo practicing mapo tofu at home. There is a short section in the middle of Xiaomeng's appearance, which can be regarded as a new 2-dimensional girl. In the previous fan animations, Xiaoruo didn't let Xiaomeng appear in the scene. The only thing that was there was the short section where she brought Chun home. Xiaoruo cut out the actual plot, so Xiaomeng didn't appear in the scene. But the system is also very interesting. In the plot where Xiaomeng appeared, the face of the 2-dimensional girl is full of shadows, but the girl's face cannot be seen from all angles. There is such a production method in the animation. Xiaoruo didn't upload it directly. After all, there are too few fan animations now, there are only 2 episodes, and there is no way to keep updating them. He searched in the system's USB flash drive, and then found the latest episode of Piang Kaikadon and uploaded it. It was the episode where Xiaoruo made lunch for Chun. Said, "I'm learning to cook recently." This is an obvious hint. Now that the Little Master of China is on the air, and Xiaoruo told Chun that she is learning cooking skills, and Xiaoruo's cooking skills are improving by leaps and bounds. Practice cooking skills in the world. This can be regarded as a warm-up for the fan animation of the Little Master of China. After leaving the world of Little Master, Xiaoruo rested at home for a few days and accompanied her parents. Before that, she had been traveling in different worlds and didn't spend much time at home. But now that I am free, there is nothing to do. After all, many tasks are in progress and have not been completed. Without task rewards, there is no way to unlock the new world. Then, about a week later, the system that had been silent for a long time suddenly rang. Ding! The prestige meets the requirements, and it is detected that the system can be upgraded. Whether to spend 5,000 prestige to upgrade the system and unlock more functions. The system's voice reminded Xiaoruo, and he quickly looked at his reputation bar. Sure enough, the reputation just reached the 5,000 standard. Xiaoruo, LV2, 5,000/10,000. Can you upgrade with only 5,000 reputation? Xiaoruo had a premonition before, but thought she needed to reach level 3 to upgrade. Upgrade, Xiaoruo replied immediately. Xiaoruo didn't hesitate too much about upgrading the system. After all, the system is her foundation. Prestige can be earned, and it grows very fast. You can save about 5,000 prestige in about 2 weeks. If it is not too distressed. Moreover, the system now has such powerful functions. Xiaoruo is looking forward to what new functions will be added after the system is unlocked. These prestige must be spent. Ding! System upgrade begins. System upgrade. Ding! The system upgrade is complete. After less than 3 minutes, the system was upgraded, and Xiaoruo couldn't wait to check what was different about the newly upgraded system. Then, Xiaoruo saw that a long list of functions had been added to the system. New feature unlock 1, Prestige Lottery. New feature unlocked 2, Fusion World. New feature unlocked 3, Story Mode. Prestige Lottery System, 5,000 reputation points can be consumed to draw a new fantasy world and obtain animations. Note, the first draw is free. Fantasy World Fusion, when the world views are similar, the fantasy world has a certain chance to merge. Note, to be optimized. Story Mission Mode, the system will randomly start the story mode. In addition, some internal functions have been optimized after the system upgrade. Please experience it yourself. 3 major functions have been added. Ciaruo carefully read it several times, and found that compared with the previous rigid system, after adding new functions, the system has become much more powerful. This 5,000 prestige is worth the money. Not to mention anything else, let's just say that the first added function is the prestige lottery, which can spend prestige to draw the world. This means that Ciaruo doesn't have to keep staring at the task in the future, because once the task fails before, you can't get a new world. Opening a new mission in a new world can easily lead to a dead end. Not to mention the prestige lottery draw with 5,000 prestige points once, and the first lottery draw is free, which means that the 5,000 prestige spent this time will be earned back directly. This system upgrade is tantamount to prostitution. The system is at a loss. Cough cough. As for the second function, Fantasy World Fusion, if Ciaruo thought about it for a while, it was probably the same worldview, and the system could fuse those worldviews to form a fusion world. Just like the Marvel superhero series, heroes with different stories are placed in one world, and in animation, 2 characters from different animations can appear in a fantasy world at the same time. However, the function given by the system does not say what the probability of fusion is, nor does it explain which worldviews are similar, which is very vague. After all, the daily world is considered a worldview, so can all daily animations be integrated? Some characters in daily animations have superpowers, and some don't, but they all live in modern times. Can this worldview be integrated? The system is not written clearly enough. What the system gives is that when the worldviews are similar, there is a chance of fusion, and there is a mark to be optimized later, which is actually normal. Even if the worldviews are the same, there will be problems in fusion. For this function, Ciaruo always feels that some problems will definitely occur during the fusion. When the fusion of worldviews fails, the system will definitely not be responsible, and I still have to wipe my ass. But if the integration is good, then the animations played by oneself can be made into a series, and the impact of this will be too terrifying. If the animations I play can be made into a huge series by then, the audience will definitely rise in a straight line. So the official Doujin animation is still afraid of not being well known. I can break the dimensional wall. Author, Zhou Jumiao. Chapter 122. After that, Ciaruo looked at the third function unlocked by the system. Story Mission Mode. Story Mission Mode, the system will randomly start the story mission mode. This function sounds a bit like the plot mission in the game, but the system's explanation is very vague. The system is good in everything, but there is no detailed instruction manual. In terms of missions, before the system would give some missions in the fantasy world, these missions are given randomly, and there will be rewards after completion, just like playing a game, but this plot mission mode looks like it was randomly given before. Tasks are different. It may be a task to join the plot. The plot, could it be said that it is added to the animation plot? Ciaruo has not received this task yet, and when the time comes, she will know what the situation is. After that, Ciaruo took a closer look at the system and found that in addition to the added functions, the system has also optimized many things. For example, Ciaruo once traveled to a fantasy world and needed media, such as video, but now, as long as it is the world that has traveled, as long as a thought can cross, many operations have been refined. Ciaruo finally set her sights on the prestige lottery. Although I don't have a reputation now, This function allows me to draw a lottery for free. Now Sioruo happens to have no world to travel through, so in this function, Sioruo clicked on the option to draw lottery. Swish. Sioruo fell into the boundless darkness, not because she passed through, but because Sioruo entered her consciousness space. Then, countless light spots flashed in Sioruo's consciousness space, and those light spots represented small worlds, and countless small worlds revolved around Sioruo. Rotate, rotate, rotate. To the end. A golden spot of light fell in front of Sioruo. The golden light of this small world was much brighter than that of other worlds. Even compared with this small world, the light of many small worlds was much dimmer. What kind of world is this? Seeing such a big golden light in front of her eyes, Sioruo somehow felt like she had won a big prize. Inexplicable premonitions are generally accurate. The other spots of light disappeared, leaving only the one in front of Sioruo's eyes. Sioruo couldn't help reaching out to touch it. The moment he touched that world, he returned to the real world. The extraction is successful, and the new animation Spirited Away will be obtained. Spirited Away. Seeing this name, Sioruo seemed to hear the familiar BGM, and suddenly recalled the time when she was watching Spirited Away in front of the TV. Spirited Away. To actually get Spirited Away, it is really a big prize. This is one of the masterpieces of animation master Hayao Miyazaki, an Oscar-winning animated film that has long occupied the top spot in the Japanese box office. Even in Sioruo's mind, Spirited Away is the best Japanese animation movie. Sioruo watched it many times when she was very young, and when she grows up, she still has a different experience. This is an animated film for all ages, a true work of art. Thinking that such an excellent animation can be reproduced in this world, Sioruo's body is a little excited. He is simply excited because good works can be reproduced in this world. And Spirited Away is also a very interesting worldview, the background of the real world, but it has an entrance to the fantasy world. The back of the real world is the world of monsters and gods. In that world, there are magical and beautiful soup houses, Granny Tang, and many monsters and gods, faceless men, little white dragons, and various characters. It's a fantastic world with gorgeous scenery. There are so many things to remember about this animated movie. That is. Wait a moment. Sioruo thought about it. This world is really not a suitable world to travel through. First of all, this is a short animation, and the world view is not fully revealed. Secondly, it is not very suitable for the current Sioruo to travel through. Although it is a dreamlike animation, there are dark and realistic places in it. Although the animation plot is too classic, it is a story of a girl Chihiro growing up slowly in a soup house. But in essence, it is still the story of a human girl who is caught by an evil witch and works illegally in a soup house, provides customer back rubbing service, and then does not abandon, does not give up, and uses her own efforts to get rid of the slave status of illegal workers. The villain inside, Granny Tang, the owner of the soup house, is not something Sioruo can deal with now. Granny Tang is a very powerful witch, and she looks down on humans. The most important thing is that Granny Tang controls everything in the soup house. As long as Sioruo enters the soup house, it will be easy for Granny Tang to find out. Sioruo glanced at her small body, and then at Tom who was sleeping on the table not far away. With herself and Tom, she was really no match for Granny Tang. With Sioruo's current strength, it is estimated that when he went to that fantasy world, his fate would not be much better than Chihiro's, who was pure and blank. That fate. In the soup house, it's better to be a chef to cook a dish for the guests, and to eat with their own skills. A little worse, that is to take the dishes to wash the dishes, and take the bath towel to rub the backs of the monsters and gods inside. Thinking of this, Sioruo couldn't help shivering. Goosebumps appeared on Sioruo's body when she thought of being crazily exploited by a ferocious witch like Granny Tang and drained her worth. Don't go to this world for the time being. Although I don't know Granny Tang's strength, judging from the plot of the animation, Granny Tang's strength is much stronger than my current self. Even if I reach LV3, I may not be an opponent. The world of Inuyasha is actually a world of monsters, and there are even gods such as river gods and water gods in it. If you compare it, Granny Tang should be considered to be close to the strength of a big monster. And there is no benefit in going to that world. In the world of Spirited Away, the most valuable place is the soup house that can entertain any strange customers. In the future, when you become stronger, you can go to the soup house. At that time, as a guest, you will bring your friends along and let Granny Tang receive you. The soup house is also good as a place to receive friends, and the services inside are quite in place. By the way, Grandma Tang's strength, who is better than Kikyo, although Granny Tang has a lot of powerful magic, but with the huge spiritual power of Kikyo, she shouldn't be afraid. Bring Kikyo, invite Kikyo to the soup house for a meal, for healthcare? Syoruo suddenly began to think wildly. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I can break the dimensional wall. Author, Zhou Jumiao. Chapter 123. Lin Chuyu is Xiameng's classmate. Unlike Xiameng, she is a two-dimensional homegirl who often likes to visit the cute station. The main reason is that the atmosphere of this website is very good, the user experience is also very good, there are no advertisements, and you can also watch bullet chats and post bullet chats. She likes this function very much. And I can also watch a lot of good-looking animations, interesting ghosts and animals, and some high-quality uphosts. Now Lin Chuyu has to go up to browse the cute website every day. Although the users of Mengzhan are not as large as the big video sites, Lin Chuyu feels that this site will definitely skyrocket in the future. Because several classic animations of Rising Animation were first broadcast on Mengzhan, there are now more and more users on Mengzhan, and many of the users who come here like animation. I don't know if the Rising Animation has updated the new animation today. As usual, Lin Chuyu opened the cute website, ready to see if there were any interesting videos and new updates on the rankings. As a result, after opening the homepage, she immediately saw a very huge picture of a two-dimensional girl. At the same time, there was a line of large characters on top of the girl's head. Spirited Away. The title of Spirited Away is actually the name of the heroine. The heroine's original name was Chihiro, and when she was working illegally in the soup house, she was deprived of her name by Granny Tang and changed her name to Chihiro. The title is the two names of the heroine. On the recommendation on the homepage of the cute website, a slightly immature girl is wearing a pink attire, and the background is like a brightly lit flower street. But the girl looked back, and in such a lively place, her thin figure looked very lonely. This cover picture has a very special charm in it. Seeing the cover picture on the homepage, Lin Chuyu let out a gasp. Huh? What kind of animation is this? Why don't I seem to have any impression? Is it a new animation? Lin Chuyu was very curious, so she clicked on the recommendation on the cover. After clicking in, she found that this link was not an animation, but a trailer of an animation movie. Spirited Away? What a strange name. Are they the names of two people? It's actually a trailer for an animated movie. Lin Chuyu was a little surprised, but since Mengzhan can promote it so vigorously, the quality should not be much worse go. So she continued to read. The trailer of the animated movie is only a few minutes long, and it looks like some clips from the movie, but there are many details that can be seen, that is, the animation seems to have cost a lot of money, and the movements and pictures of the characters in it are very delicate. It's a big budget movie. Although there are not many episodes, but the general plot can still be guessed, that is, a girl accompanied her parents into a mysterious world full of monsters, and if the girl wants to survive in that world, She can only work in that world. Save the parents' story. This is what Lin Chiyu deduced from the short trailer. The little girl in the animation looks very pitiful. She strayed into such a world by herself, and I am a little looking forward to the following plot, and the cruel boy is a bit handsome, so it should be the male lead. Will it be a love animation? It would be great if it was about love. I haven't seen any big animation movies about love before. Judging from the trailer, Lin Chiyu is still somewhat interested, but there is not much to see about the plot for the time being. If this animation is released, she will definitely be interested in watching it. Oh, it's a pity that I don't have anyone to watch with me, and I don't have a boyfriend. It's embarrassing to go to the movies alone. It would be nice if Xiaomeng would accompany me. The atmosphere suddenly became sad. By the way, this animated movie seems to be purely original. I didn't realize it just now, but now Lin Chiyu realized that this animation movie is actually a purely original plot. Pure originality. Which animation company made the purely original animated film? It's so inflated, how much you have to believe in your own animation quality to make such a purely original animated film. It's not that Lin Chiyu looks down on purely original animation movies, the main thing is that in today's environment, a little layer of skin, such as using some big IP, is indeed more advantageous than purely original animation. For example, in the movie, use the IP in the 4 famous novels, the IP of the mythological background of Huiguo, and tell a story with a well-known domestic mythological character, so that the market will be much larger. Although they are all telling stories, there is a difference between having an IP and not having an IP. In terms of pure originality, Lin Chiyu is not very optimistic. It's not that pure originals are a dead end, but that pure originals must be of extremely high quality and have an explosive reputation in order to break out of the tight encirclement. Half-dead pure original animation films definitely don't do well at the box office. After all, animated films have fewer audiences than other films. For example, many of the highest-grossing animation films in China are big films of well-known children's cartoons. The main market for those movies is that parents take their children to see them. Those who are older will go to the cinema to watch cartoons. After the trailer ended, Lin Chiyu immediately went to look at the comment section of the trailer. What she didn't expect was that there were already thousands of comments in the comment section, and the discussion was very high. Spirited Away, the name is a bit strange, but the production looks pretty good, the original animation film must support it. This is produced by Rising Animation, the quality must be guaranteed, and I will definitely watch it when it is released. That's right, I heard that Rising Animation recruited a lot of people due to lack of manpower some time ago, and the manpower has expanded several times. It has been secretly producing an animation. No news has been disclosed in the middle, and several Japanese animations have been recruited. Supervision, I guessed that there would be a big action, but I didn't expect it to be a new animation movie. It's true. I have followed the Weibo of the Japanese supervisor. Her name is Naoko Yamada. Her drawing skills are amazing. Rising Animation always produces animations in such a silent manner, without any publicity in advance, and even the movie is about to be released, so we only promote it on the Mo station. Looking forward to. Hey, it was actually produced by Rising Animation. After reading the comments, Lin Chiyu noticed that Spirited Away was produced by Rising Animation. Now I must go to see it, even if I am alone. Regarding Spirited Away, under Xiaoruo's request, the Mengzhan can be a vigorous publicity, not only on the top of the web page, the Mengzhan has also found a lot of popular up-owners, even in Inuyasha and the Little Master of China there are advertisements behind it. Even on other platforms, a lot of resources have been spent on publicity. There is no way, even a good quality movie needs enough publicity. During this period, Xiaoruo has been resting at home. The previous rhythm was a bit too fast, and the update of the animation is also slowed down. Now I have nothing to do, practice cooking, stay at home with my family, and then go to the world of Inuyasha to give Tsubaki cooking, and petting cats at home. I lead a somewhat leisurely life. For Syaruo, there is really no urgent task now. He is going to rest first, accumulate reputation to LV3, and strengthen his strength. After Spirited Away is released, I will go to the world of Inuyasha to see if I can get the Jade of the Four Souls. Spirited Away is a finished film, which is different from ordinary movies that need post-editing. It will be released in January. However, just the day before Spirited Away was released. Ding! Perceived that the fantasy world can be merged, the fusion begins. Ding! The plot task mode is turned on, whether to accept the plot task. So fast? Syaruo thought it would take a while for the system to release the task. Wait a minute, I only have a few fantasy worlds, and I don't remember that those worldviews can be integrated. Ding! Unexpectedly, the mission mode is turned on, whether to accept the plot mission. Okay, I accept. There is no way, reasoning with the system is unreasonable, so I can only accept it first, and I don't know what the plot tasks given by the system are like. At least after getting along with the system for so long, Syaruo feels that the system is still very conscientious. You can continue directly, anyway, there is no penalty for failure. Story task, rescue the lost girl. Mission Master World, Spirited Away / I can break the dimensional wall. Author, Zhou Jumiao. Chapter 124. Looking at the plot tasks given by the system, Syaruo was a little confused. Strange, according to the original work, with the help of Beilong, it is impossible for Chihiro to die, that is to say, if I don't do anything, the task can be completed directly. It shouldn't be that simple. The plot tasks given by the system must be different from the original. As for where it will be different from the original work, Syaruo can't guess it. If you haven't entered that world, who knows how it will develop? Maybe in this story mission, the system will arrange a new story. Besides, the biggest difference between this mission and the previous ones is that Syaruo can't return to the real world like before, that is to say, he is trapped in the fantasy world. If he doesn't complete the mission, Syaruo can't return to reality. Of course, the system has also added later, you can also give up the task, but giving up the task is equivalent to giving up the reward, and if you give up the task yourself, Chihiro will also be in danger, so this time the task is more serious than usual, and more serious. It's a little more formal. The plot mission will start in 10 days, that is to say, I have been given 10 days of preparation time. 10 days of preparation time, I have to prepare some supplies. Syaruo is familiar with preparing supplies. I remember that in the world of Spirited Away, the guests spend all their consumption in gold, and the whole soup house is very greedy for money from top to bottom. With gold, you can spend whatever you want in the soup house, and others will pay you like an uncle. At that time, the faceless man used the gold he conjured to spend crazily in the soup house. The rich faceless man was like an emperor, and let the monsters in the soup house serve him. Gold is very important. Things like gold can be bought directly in the real world without any problem. In fact, there is a lot of gold in Syaruo's space, and there is a lot of it. When I was traveling with Tsubaki in the world of Inuyasha, I was very lucky. I met a few rich monsters. After getting rid of that monster, in its a lot of gold has been found in the lair. All these golds were snatched by the monsters after eating the human caravan, and they didn't know what the monsters were doing with the gold. Even in the demon city at that time, Syaruo found a lot of the city lord's property under the city lord's mansion. Syaruo used space to save those properties and golden tune alone, and even Syaruo's space was full, and the extras were placed in the corner of Syaruo's bedroom. At that time, Chun said that she and Syaruo had a 50-50 split, and that she would let Syaruo take her share first, and then give it to her later, but after the two got together, Chun didn't mention it. She didn't even think about it. That's how the money problem was solved. With gold and money, the next thing to consider is force. If force is insufficient, the success rate is not high. It is difficult to get some firearms in the real world, and they may not be effective. Let's not consider it for now. Xiaoruo set her sights on her reputation bar again. Level LV2, 9232/10,000. Looking at the growth rate of this prestige bar, Xiaoruo is very satisfied. 1 month of self-cultivation has so much prestige, which is already a lot. This speed can be upgraded in 2 or 3 days. When I reach LV3, my strength will be stronger, but LV3 is not enough. If I really want to fight Granny Tang, I still need a helper, a powerful helper. Xiaoruo glanced at Tom at the same time. Meow. Tom felt a chill and wanted to slip away instantly, but Xiaoruo predicted Tom's action position and reached out and grabbed Tom. Xiaoruo put Tom in front of her. Don't run, go meet someone with me later. Tom nodded obediently. Although he didn't know who the owner was going to see, Tom's intuition told it that his leisure time was coming to an end. Xiaoruo brought Tom to the world of Inuyasha, and after looking at the direction, he asked Tom to take him off on a broomstick. Wanting to find a powerful helper, Xiaoruo immediately thought of Kikyo. Look for the top combat power in the world of Inuyasha. Kikyo's combat power is considered to be the top group in the world. After all, she is the strongest witch of the era. As for Tsubaki, forget it. According to the information Feng told me at the time, it should be in this direction. Xiaoruo looked at the scenery on the ground and quickly skipped on Tom's broom. He actually didn't know where the village of Kikyo was, but at that time he asked Feng for the approximate direction, and Feng also told Xiaoruo that as long as he followed this direction and kept asking people, there was no one in the area who didn't know the Maiden of Kikyo. Tom's flying broom is very fast. Just when Xiaoruo thought it was time to land and asked a village for its location, Xiaoruo suddenly saw a noodle monster flying in front of Tom. It is the kind of ordinary flying monster, and the long one, like an earthworm, with a head diameter of more than 1 meter and a body length of more than 10 meters, the kind of cannon fodder in the world of Inuyasha. Tom, get close to it, Xiaoruo immediately ordered to Tom. Meow. Tom responded, controlled the broom, and quickly approached the noodle monster. Tom's magic broom was much faster than the flying monster, and Xiaoruo was side by side with the monster in the blink of an eye. Brother, excuse me, how can I get to the village where the witch Kikyo is? Xiaoruo politely asked the way to the monster next to her with a smile on her face. The noodle monster blinked to make sure he wasn't dazzled. A human indeed, and a cat, 2 creatures riding a stick asking themselves the way. Wait a minute, can humans fly? The noodle monster shook its head. It must be thinking too much. How could humans fly? And it is so strange. It must be a monster. It should be a disguise of a monster, not to mention, the disguise is the same as a real human being. Brother, you have also heard the rumors that you are going to find the witch Kikyo to grab the jade of the 4 souls. Let's go together. The noodle monster grinned, and replied to Xiaoruo with its bloody mouth. Really? That's really lucky. Xiaoruo was a little surprised. He didn't expect to be so lucky that he happened to meet such cannon fodder who was going to die. That's right, just follow me. I'll take you to see the big army right away. That dog-like witch has killed a lot of monsters these days. I think her spiritual power has been exhausted. Today is her end, ha 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 ha. As he spoke, the noodle monster laughed wildly. Well. Hearing what it said, Xiaoruo was really worried about the orange terrier. She had been guarding the jade of the 4 souls for a month, and Xiaoruo really didn't know what was going on with the orange terrier. According to the plot of the original work, even if endless monsters attack like waves, Kikyo should not change his face. Syaruo flew with the monsters for a while, and the number of monsters flying around became more and more, and even the more you flew forward, the more monsters around you. Many monsters joined in halfway, and even flew up from the forest below. The monsters began to gather slowly. This is the era of monsters. In this era, because of the wars and killings among human beings, there are endless monsters growing on the land of resentment, which cannot be killed. Interestingly, among the monsters, there was a human flying with them. Although some monsters noticed this human being, they glanced to the side and saw that other monsters ignored the human being, so no monster came forward. If I guessed wrong, no yokai who can transform into a human being will be weak. Syaruo followed all the way like this. The hundreds of monsters gathered around him were a large army, but he was still wrong. Soon, Syaruo saw a purple fog appearing in the distant sky. It was a little strange at first, but after getting closer, Syaruo discovered that the piece of fog in the sky was not purple fog at all, but a group of densely packed monsters. There were too many monsters, and the rich purple monster energy became substantive. Polluted the sky. I can break the dimensional wall. Author, Zhou Jumiao. Chapter 125. Looking at the densely packed monsters in the sky, Syaruo couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. There are too many monsters. Even if it looks like they are all little monsters, it is a problem if there are too many monsters gathered. The formed monster group covers the sky and the sun, although I have seen such a scene in the original animation, but if you look at it live, the visual impact is still great. It is hard to imagine that these monsters gather to deal with a witch. I should tell Kikyo in advance to make her ready. Syaruo turned the cat's head in front of her to make Tom turn a corner, and then accelerated forward, using the super high speed of Tom's magic broom to overtake those monsters. Syaruo also asked about the location of Bellflower Village just now. Tom's speed was very fast. Within 10 minutes, Syaruo and Tom saw a small village. Syaruo didn't speak, and Tom automatically landed nearby. Syaruo walked into the village, and found that the villagers inside were all working, without any sense of tension before the crisis. "Excuse me, is Lord Kikyo here?" "I have something to do with Mr. Kikyo," Syaruo asked after seeing a woman. "Oh, you are looking for Mrs. Kikyo. Mrs. Kikyo was still there just now, you just need to keep walking in this direction to see her." The woman pointed her finger in one direction. "Thanks." After thanking her, Syaruo ran towards the direction of the woman's finger. Not long after, Syaruo saw the figure of Kikyo, the witch in the red and white witch costume. Looking into the distance, he looked like he was thinking about life. "Just don't know what to think." "Hey, Kikyo." Syaruo started to say hello from a long distance away. To be honest, the two of them were considered acquaintances. Although they were not familiar with each other, they also had a few meals of friendship. "Huh." After hearing Syaruo's voice, Kikyo withdrew her gaze from a distance, looked sideways at Syaruo, who was slowly running over, and let out a light sigh. "Syaruo, aren't you with Chun?" Why did you come to look for me? What can I do for you?" Kikyo's attitude towards Syaruo is quite gentle at this time, probably because he had a good impression of Syaruo before. "I did come to you because I had something to do, but let's put things aside first. When I came, I saw a lot of monsters gathered together. It might be to harm you, so I came here to inform you in advance." A lot of monsters. Kikyo was not surprised when she heard Syaruo's words. For the Jade of the Four Souls, many monsters attack her every day. She is used to it. "How many monsters are there?" "There are a lot of them, it feels like there are thousands of them. The sky is full of monsters, and the ghostly aura of the monsters even condenses into a purple mist." Syaruo roughly described the scene she saw at that time. "If you can't handle Kikyo, I can help you." "Thank you for informing me of this news, but it doesn't matter, these monsters can't cause trouble, Kikyo's tone was still very flat when he heard the news from Syaruo. Seeing such a bland Kikyo, Syaruo also felt relieved. Since Kikyo said so, there should be no problem. Today's Kikyo is different from what the monster said, and it doesn't look like it's exhausting its spiritual power at all. He didn't notice it just now, but now he concentrates on looking at it, and finds that the aura on Kikyo's body at this time is much stronger than when he saw her before, and his whole body is full of an inexplicable sense of oppression. An illusion of looking at a god above. Today's Kikyo should be the peak Kikyo after having matured and experienced in the original work after possessing the Jade of the Four Souls. And now Kikyo doesn't have Tsubaki's curse on her body. In this world of monsters, she is almost invincible. Kikyo suddenly walked in one direction alone. "Where are you going?" Syaruo asked, puzzled. "Go to meet the monsters. I want to deal with those monsters outside the village, otherwise it will easily frighten the villagers," Kikyo said in a flat tone as if he was going out to take out the trash. "What about the villagers in the village? What if a monster enters the village?" Syaruo asked, puzzled. "There is an enchantment I set up in the village, and monsters can't get in." "Oh." Syaruo also followed Jijiao out of the village, following behind Jijiao every step of the way. "Why are you following me? Aren't you afraid of danger?" Kikyo couldn't help but turned around and asked. "Well, I think there are too many monsters, and I'm worried that something will happen to you," Syaruo said honestly. "If I can't deal with those monsters, what can you do?" Kikyo looked at Syaruo curiously. "Let me run with you. Tom's flying speed is very fast, those monsters can't catch up." Syaruo pointed to Tom at her feet. Kikyo couldn't help laughing when he heard Syaruo's words. After walking for about 3 minutes, Syaruo finally saw a group of monsters, overwhelming like a group of monsters crushed by dark clouds. "Kankyo, die. Ha ha ha, hand over the Jade of the Four Souls, and I will give you a whole corpse. Hand over the Jade of the Four Souls, otherwise you should know what will happen. Die, 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 die." From far away, Syaruo could hear the obscenities of the monsters, but Kikyo didn't care at all. Instead, he drew an arrow behind him and pointed it in the direction of the monsters. The moment Syaruo saw the arrow, Syaruo suddenly thought of one thing, that is, if the monsters gathered so densely, did it save a lot of time for Kikyo to eliminate the monsters? You must know that Kikyo's devil-breaking arrow has never been just a single target, but also a large-scale AoE range damage, and it is a very well-known one. Kikyo shoots an arrow. An arrow shot out. The arrow seemed to cut through the sky, and the arrow shining with the power of breaking demons shot to the center of the group of monsters, and finally, the arrow exploded. The dazzling demon-breaking power started directly from the middle, and crazily devoured all the surrounding monsters. Accompanied by the desperate screams of the monsters before they died, wherever the demon-breaking light went, all the monsters were reduced to ashes. With an arrow that destroys demons, thousands of monsters are wiped out. Those monsters gathered together, prepared to win by numbers, and wanted to snatch the Jade of the Four Souls, all disappeared in this world. I am afraid that when they came, they never thought that there would be such a powerful witch in the world. It is precisely because of this terrifying strength that Kikyo can protect the Jade of the Four Souls. Seeing this scene, Syaruo felt that she had definitely found the right person when she came to find Jujin as a helper. Kikyo's strength can also walk sideways in Spirited Away. Although in the world of Spirited Away, the guests served in the soup house are all gods, which seem to be very high-end, but the meaning of the gods in Japan and the gods in Hwagyo is completely different. Japanese monster culture is prevalent, and it is claimed that there are 8 million gods, but it is a god system derived from the unique Japanese idea of gods dwell in all things in the world, based on the fact that everything is a god. For example, rivers may give birth to gods, but in Japanese legend, there are 7 gods living in a grain of rice. It is said to be a god, but in fact it is similar to the ghosts of Hwagyo. Many gods are not as powerful as monsters, and the powerful gods are stronger. Inuyasha's world level is not necessarily worse than Spirited Away's world. A big monster in Inuyasha's world may not be easy to solve in that world. Syaruo turned her head to look at Kikyo. Jiangsu, I'm here this time because I need you to help me with something. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I can break the dimensional wall. Author, Zhou Jumiao. Chapter 126. Syaruo gave Kikyo a brief introduction to the world of Spirited Away, and then said his request. The content is roughly that he is going to a very dangerous different world. I hope Kikyo can help a little by then. Even Syaruo proposed that after helping, he would be rewarded generously. Inuyasha's world also has other worlds such as the underworld, so Kikyo can also understand what Syaruo said. Of course, Kikyo doesn't really care about the pay. You came to me? Then why didn't you go to Chun? After hearing what Syaruo said, Kikyo asked in confusion, it's okay to go to Chun, why did you come to me on purpose? Well, if Chun goes, I'm afraid something will happen to her, Syaruo said after thinking for a while. But what he meant was that Tsubaki's strength is not enough and accidents are prone to happen, but Kikyo heard another meaning. Ah! This means that it's okay to die there after I go there. After hearing this, Kikyo almost couldn't help but want to shoot something with an arrow. It's fine if he wants me to be a tool man, and he indirectly showed a wave of affection. Are you a human being? If it was the Platycodon in the past, it would definitely not think crookedly, but now the Platycodon is used to eating dog food, and it will unconsciously think about it. Wait a minute, you're thinking wrong. Syaruo quickly explained, I just think that Chun's current strength is not enough. If Chun goes, maybe both of us will die there. You think too much. In fact, it is not as exaggerated as death, but Syaruo still said something serious. So that's how it is. Knowing that she was thinking wrongly, Kikyo's complexion improved a little, but she never thought that she could think of such a strange place. It seems that the world you are going to is really dangerous. In this case, I can help you. When the time comes, just come to me. As a witch, Kikyo acts to help ordinary people. In addition, she is very kind. Even if it is a request from an ordinary farmer, she will work tirelessly to remove the demon, even without charging a fee. Therefore, Kikyo did not refuse Syaruo's request. Then it's settled, thank you so much, I will pay the reward then, Syaruo thanked. Forget about the reward. She liked the candy you gave to my sister very much, Kikyo smiled lightly. Syaruo gave a lot of those toffees at that time, and Kikyo tasted 2 of them. They were delicious, and even now they are a little aftertaste, that kind of fragrant and sweet taste at that time. Syaruo nodded. I see, I'll go get another box. Kikyo. After making an agreement with Kikyo, Syaruo possessed a super combat power. Even if there were any changes in the mission, it would be fine, and the difficulty of the mission dropped linearly. Next, is to wait for the task to start. During the period, the animated film Spirited Away was officially released after a period of publicity. On the same day, Syaruo went to buy a ticket in person, and then went to the cinema to watch it alone. He really liked the feeling of being alone. The task is about to be done, and Syaruo also wants to review this movie. In fact, the animation Spirited Away won many awards at that time, and many film critics said that Syaruo couldn't see the connotation in it, but after watching it, he would think it was good looking and impressive. Maybe this is classic. Looking back this time, Syaruo is not looking for any connotation, let alone seeing the symbolic meaning of the characters in this movie, he just wants to remember the plot inside and not let himself make mistakes. Looking around, Syaruo found that the attendance rate was quite high, and it seemed that the promotion was in place. Soon, the movie begins. The first one appeared was the heroine Chihiro and her parents. At this time, their family was preparing to move to a remote place to live. Then in the car, Chihiro showed a child's spoiled and ignorant feeling, just like a child. Then soon, because of their father's detour, they came to a tunnel, and then their parents walked into the tunnel with Chihiro. At this moment, the three humans entered a fantasy world. That world was a street like a flower street, surrounded by food. Parents turned into pigs after eating the food prepared for the gods, while Chihiro gradually became transparent until she met the kind white dragon and ate things from that world without disappearing. This is an interesting point. Wouldn't she disappear if she ate the food from that world? But her parents ate the food and turned into pigs, which means it's not the food problem, but was discovered, so she was turned into a pig by Granny Tang. After keeping this in mind, Syaruo continued to read. After that, Baelong used his own means to bring Kyungsun into the soup house, and then let Kyungsun go to the soup house to find a job. People without jobs cannot survive in this world. Syaruo can understand this a little bit, that is, she threw a little girl who was pampered at home directly to the society to be polished, without the help of her parents, and completely relied on herself to survive. A soup house is like a society where ordinary people cannot survive without a job. No one will help you, the only one who helps Chihiro is Baelong, who returns the advice Baelong gave her. Don't say you want to go home, you must say you want to stay and work. Chihiro really behaved badly at the beginning, afraid of high stairs, unable to move coal, incapable, and then it would only affect other people's work, not polite and would not say thank you, for which she was reprimanded by Xiaoling. To be honest, losing his parents suddenly and then encountering such a cruel experience, this kind of blow is a bit too big for a child who has just entered the society. If it was an ordinary child, he would definitely cry, but Chihiro went on strong and went to face the evil Granny Tang, hoping that Granny Tang would give her a job. The thin Chihiro, whose head is not as big as Granny Tang's nose, was threatened by Granny Tang, and even insulted Chihiro, saying that she knows nothing, she will not want employees who know nothing. I hope Chihiro will give up looking for a job, but Chihiro still firmly hopes to stay and work, because those who don't work will be turned into animals and eaten. Finally Chihiro succeeded. She got a job, but she just signed a contract with Granny Tang that lost her name and became a slave. Seeing this, Syaruo couldn't help but bring herself in, feeling a little distressed for Chihiro. Chihiro is so pitiful. Hey, this plot is too real. If I can travel back in time and modify the plot to write about a fan, then I will change it to. The girl's family is in trouble, she is a desperate girl, and he is the master of the soup house. The girl was forced to sign a contract of prostitution with him. In the dark, he said ruthlessly, "You are just my tool," but as a result, her figure fell into dreams every night. 5 years later, a cute baby descended from the sky. Cough cough. Syaruo shook her head. She may have been free recently and read too many novels. Otherwise, why would she come up with such a strange idea? But if it is changed to a fan, maybe many people will really read it. Syaruo thinks the above plot is not bad. Or change to. At night, the sky was pouring with rain. In the rain, the boy protected the girl beside him, ignoring the rainwater dripping from his hair. Facing the group of demons around him, he roared angrily. I want to take her away today, who dares to stop me, / I can break the dimensional wall. Author, Zhou Zhijumiao. Chapter 127. Syaruo continued watching the movie. There is an important point in the previous plot, that is, people who do not work cannot survive in this world. Syaruo felt that if she suddenly appeared in the world of Spirited Away as a human being, she would probably go the same way as Qian Suan, that is, go to Granny Tang to apply for a job. Like Chihiro, being made things difficult by Granny Tang, and then working illegally. This process is inevitable. In the following movie plots, Xiaoruo didn't care much about the various meanings in it. Xiaoruo kept her eyes on Qingxuan, because this girl was the focus of her mission. He saw Chihiro's growth from the plot, Chihiro's kindness. The girl grew up slowly from a little girl who never left home, a spoiled girl, and became strong and reliable, while never forgetting her original intention. Compared with the greedy monster employees in the soup house, Chihiro is still that innocent little girl. Help the river god and care about the faceless man. Especially when Qingxun was going to take the tram to find Granny Jian in order to rescue Beilong, Xiaoruo was very relieved. After Beilong was injured, Grandpa Boiler gave Chihiro a ticket and told her that as long as she took this tram to the end, she could find Granny Jian. When Grandpa Boiler asked, "In this case, do you still want to go?" Chihiro replied without hesitation, "I can run back along the tracks." It's hard to imagine that the person who said this was the timid little girl at the beginning. At the end, when Chihiro finds her parents, unlocks the transformation technique, and leaves the tunnel with her parents to return to the real world, the story of this animation is over. After the end, the audience got up, and even many people were chatting about the plot, and seemed very satisfied with the plot. Xiaoruo also quietly left her seat. The quality of Spirited Away is absolutely fine, and the audience's reaction is within his expectations. A good work is hard to be buried. Soon, the flames of Spirited Away ignited, the ratings were extremely high, the box office also skyrocketed, and even in-depth interpretation articles appeared on various platforms. After all, it is an Oscar-winning animation. Spirited Away has almost no shortcomings, and all platforms are blown up. Maybe only those who like animation will watch it at first, but gradually, with more and more favorable reviews, more and more film critics praise this work, and gradually, even the audience who usually don't like animation, also walked into the cinema to watch Spirited Away. Xiaoruo didn't care about these, because it wasn't long before it was time for him to start the mission. The plot task starts counting down, 10, 9, 8. Xiaoruo hugged Tom tightly, ignoring the strength of Tom struggling in her hands. There was no way, Tom was a mount and could not be left behind. "What are you running for? I'll take you on a trip, soak in hot springs, and eat delicious food. You're really a stupid cat. You don't even know how to enjoy yourself. Meow. I believe you, ghost." Tom continued to struggle, but to no avail. Xiaoruo went to the world of Spirited Away, but only brought Tom, not Kikyo, mainly because he didn't know what was going on in that world now, and the system restricted that he was not allowed to return to the real world during the mission, but fantasy worlds are intertraversable. That is to say, in case of danger, Xiaoruo can go directly to Inuyasha world to pull Kikyo over, so there is no need to bring Kikyo from the beginning, and now Xiaoruo has also upgraded to LV3, which is not strong, but it also has a certain degree of self-protection ability. As the countdown ended, Xiaoruo was sucked into another world. The fresh air is completely different from the industrialized world of the modern world. In the blink of an eye, everything in front of Xiaoruo's eyes changed. What appeared in front of her eyes was the blue sky and the endless sea. The sky is really too blue. It may be because of Hayao Miyazaki's excellent production. Yes, the scenery here is much more beautiful than other worlds that Xiaoruo has been to. Here it is. Xiaoruo took a look, and she appeared on a bridge. The scenery here is indeed a bit like a familiar wooden bridge in Spirited Away. It is still daytime, there are no guests, and there is no one around. The soup house and the surrounding small shops all work at night, and no one shows up during the day. Xiaoruo walked on the food street in the animation, looking at the food placed around her. Xiaoruo didn't move, but went straight to the soup house. Although it is a plot mission mode, the system did not give me an identity, and it seems that I still have to solve the identity problem by myself. Now my situation is a bit like a human being who has strayed into this fantasy world. He must find a job before night, otherwise he will not be able to. Syaruo didn't know if she would disappear after eating things from this world. And his task is to send the girl home. Chihiro will definitely enter the soup house. It is also a good way to be a ghost in the soup house in advance. The huge building of the soup house is really conspicuous. Syaruo arrived in front of the soup house in a short time. As for how to find a job, you can copy Chihiro's process, find Grandpa Boiler, and ask if you can help. Of course, whether Grandpa Boiler will help him is also a question, but it's better to ask first. After all, Grandpa Boiler is a good guy in this play. Syaruo has watched Spirited Away many times, so she remembers exactly where Beilong pointed Chihiro. Syaruo has been walking along the route in memory. Sure enough, she found the long staircase Chihiro walked in the animation. After reaching the end of the stairs, Syaruo found Grandpa Boiler's workshop. After knocking on the door, Syaruo suddenly found that the door could not be opened. "Hello, is anyone there?" Syaruo knocked for a long time, but found that the door didn't open, and she didn't know if she didn't hear it or if there was no one inside. It's broad daylight, and Grandpa Boiler is probably still sleeping. Since you don't open the door, you have to think of another way. Plan 1 failed, so Plan 2 could only be implemented. Before Syaruo came to this world, he had prepared many plans. After all, he couldn't fail without seeing Granny Tang. "Tom, fly for me." Syaruo directly gave Tom a broom and let Tom fly with him. Granny Tang's office is on the top floor of the soup house, and she needs to change elevators several times to go up. Without help, it is very difficult to see Granny Tang without being noticed. Syaruo originally wanted to ask Grandpa Boiler for help, so she took herself there. "I found Granny Tang on the top floor, but now I can't do it, so I can only fly to the top floor by myself." Since Beilong and Granny Tang have always flown into the room, Granny Tang's top floor room happened to have a large window that people could pass through, so Syaruo walked around the top floor of the soup house several times, and finally found the one big window, flew in through that window. Swish! Syaruo and Tom went through the small window and landed in Granny Tang's room. At this time, Granny Tang was writing something at the table, and then suddenly saw a human flying into her room on a broomstick. Humanity. Riding a broom. The witch's apprentice? Granny Tang didn't understand the situation for a while. I can break the dimensional wall. Author, Zhou Jumiao. Chapter 128. Granny Tang looked at Syaruo, who suddenly appeared, and was indeed a little confused. Flying on a broomstick and carrying a cat with her is the standard equipment for a witch, but what Granny Tang didn't expect was that the person in front of her was exuding a human smell, and she was also a man. Humanity. Granny Tang confirmed for a few seconds before confirming that the person in front of her was indeed a human being. Granny Tang narrowed her eyes slightly. "What are you doing here? Humans shouldn't come to this place." "I want to come here to find a job." Syaruo put away the broom and put Tom on her shoulders. "Looking for a job? What a joke." Granny Tang stretched out her finger and swiped lightly. Syaruo's mouth seemed to be closed like a zipper, and it was completely sealed. This is the witch's magic. It was also Granny Tang's blow to Syaruo. A flame appeared on Granny Tang's finger, and at the same time she lit a long cigarette with this flame, took a sharp puff, and exhaled a puff of smoke. Granny Tang looked at Syaruo with a sly smile on her face. "What nonsense are you talking about? No matter what your status is in the human world, you are useless when you come to this world, and why should I hire you? I will not hire useless people. What can you do, or say, can you do me any favors?" The scene at this time is the same as in the original work. It is Granny Tang's test of Syaruo, or an interview. Granny Tang refused Syaruo's request. She wanted to see Xiaoruo's panicked expression, but unfortunately, Granny Tang only saw peace on Xiaoruo's face. Xiaoruo wanted to try to open his mouth, but found that his mouth was imprisoned by the zipper, so he used the power of reality to act on his mouth. Baiu! There was a sound like a spell being broken, and the zipper on Xiaoruo's mouth also disappeared. It seemed that the power of LV3 reality was effective for magic. After discovering this, the corners of Xiaoruo's mouth slightly curled up. Sure enough, she still overestimated the strength of this world before. The most powerful thing about Granny Tang is her weird and unpredictable magic. She can turn humans into animals at will, but since the power of reality is effective, it shows that her power of reality can restrain Granny Tang's magic. Today's Granny Tang is not so scary in Xiaoruo's eyes. After all, Xiaoruo also watched Granny Tang's attack magic besides transformation magic. When she hit the faceless man, the little fireball that Granny Tang made with her hands almost made Xiaoruo laugh to death. I hope you can give me a job. My cooking skills are very good, Xiaoruo said in the same tone as before, without any rush. Huh. Seeing that her gag spell was easily broken by the kid in front of her, Granny Tang's originally loose attitude suddenly became serious. This kid, is he here to make trouble? To be able to break the magic so easily without dispelling the spell, to be able to do this is definitely not a human being who strayed into this world. Granny Tang even sensed a hint of danger from this kid. Where did this kid come from? Seeing that Granny Tang fell silent, Xiaoruo slowly stretched out her hand, and at the same time, a plate with a lid appeared in Xiaoruo's hand. You can try my cooking first. As long as you eat what I cook, you will definitely hire me. My cooking skills are absolutely unique in this world. Xiaoruo put the plate in her hand on the table in front of Granny Tang. She had shown her strength before, and now it's time to show her worth. Please taste it. Granny Tang looked at the plate in front of her, but still said nothing. The other party didn't seem to intend to make trouble. Is this kid really here to find a job? Granny Tang thought for a while, but she still lifted the lid of the plate in front of her with her hands. Swish! The moment the lid was lifted, a red light erupted from the middle of the plate instantly, and the red light dyed everything around it red, and the whole room was enveloped in red light. This light, what the hell is it? Granny Tang shrank back, while blocking the dazzling light with her fingers. She really can't keep calm now, no matter how well informed she is, she has never seen a dish that glows. This glowing effect is like a treasure from heaven and earth. The red light lasted for about 4 or 5 seconds before it slowly dissipated. The light faded, and Granny Tang finally saw what was on the plate. The plate was just a simple plate of mapo tofu. Granny Tang hadn't recovered from the shock just now. It's magical mapo tofu, a truly legendary dish, Xiaoruo explained from the side. In fact, he has mastered the most basic culinary skills in the world of Little Master. No matter what dish he cooks, he can make the ultimate delicious food, but the most powerful and shining thing is this plate of magic mapo tofu that he has practiced many times. Goodoo! Granny Tang looked at the plate of mapo tofu that was still shimmering, and swallowed. For some reason, she could feel the deliciousness in it just from the appearance. After all, she is a person with mysterious power, so she doesn't think that the food will glow because of the addition of fluorescent agent. In Granny Tang's opinion, the food that can glow is definitely at the level that the god of cooking can make. This is top cuisine. Granny Tang couldn't bear it any longer, so she picked up the spoon on the side and scooped it up. Bite down. Boom. The moment the dish touched her tongue, the ultimate delicacy exploded directly in Granny Tang's mouth. She seemed to be biting a fire in her mouth, and endless illusions such as volcanoes and tsunamis emerged in her mind. This dish was exactly as she thought. Is the most extreme top cuisine. After one bite, Granny Tang didn't stop at all, and ate the whole plate of mapo tofu in one breath. Compared with this plate of mapo tofu, Granny Tang felt that the delicacies made in her soup house were really like pig food. Too delicious. There are only these 4 words left in Granny Tang's heart. Even a god would not be able to resist such a delicacy. Grandma Tang stared at Xiaoruo with wide eyes at this time. Her straight eyes seemed not to be looking at a human being, but endless gold. This kind of food is definitely a money-making machine, and this idea appeared in Granny Tang's mind. How is it? Xiaoruo asked with a smile. Hearing Xiaoruo's voice, Granny Tang woke up from a blank mind. Without hesitation, Granny Tang took out a contract, waved her hand, and the contract flew in front of Xiaoruo. Sign the contract, from now on you will be the chef of the soup house. Granny Tang seemed to have seen the scene where the soup house exploded after this kid joined him. Xiaoruo took the contract that flew over, and after looking at it, she shook her head. Granny Tang is really an unscrupulous businessman, and she asked herself to sign this kind of slave contract like Chihiro. Go on, after signing, I guess I can't get rid of it, and I will be working illegally for the rest of my life. It's fine to sign the contract, but the content needs to be changed, otherwise I won't sign it. Now the positions of the 2 parties have changed. Before Xiaoruo was applying for a job, but now he has shown his value, but Granny Tang has not shown enough sincerity. How can Granny Tang keep him as a talent now? Granny Tang frowned. She didn't expect this kid to dare to negotiate terms with her. How do you want to change it? The boy in front of him has indeed shown his worth. Cooking at the level of a cooking god can add great prestige to the soup house, and he doesn't know his strength, so Granny Tang can listen to this boy's conditions. If ordinary human beings dared to negotiate terms with her, she would have been turned into a pig long ago. Of course, if this little lion opened his mouth, she would not be such a kind person. You have eaten my dishes, so with my dishes to give you a sign, the soup house will definitely earn endless gold, but I don't want to make too many dishes, so the dishes that will shine will only invite honored guests, honored gods. Xiaoruo said his first condition. He didn't want to really become a chef who cooks big pots of rice, although Tom can do things like cooking. Yes, Granny Tang nodded. She felt that cooking of this level could only entertain the most distinguished guests. With the comparison between luminous dishes and ordinary dishes, luminous dishes can be sold at a better price, so that more gods flock to it. This condition is also acceptable. What else? Granny Tang continued to ask. Status, except for you, I don't like being ordered by anyone in the soup house. Xiaoruo said his second condition. He didn't really come here to work and be angry. Sure enough, I'm still a young man who likes rights. I can give them to you. You are capable enough to have such rights. Granny Tang didn't seem to care much about this, as long as she can make money for herself. Anyway, strength is king in this world. With this kid's strength, none of the bullies in Tangguo dared to bully him. Of course, if you can't give me money, I can abandon you at any time. The third point, in terms of salary, you can give money as you like. I don't care much about money, but I hope to learn magic from you, Granny Tang, and use this as my reward. Learn magic. Granny Tang sat on the chair and leaned back. At the same time, she took out a cigarette and took a puff. After listening to Xiaoruo's conditions, her expression relaxed a lot. At the beginning, she didn't know the purpose of this kid, but now it became clear that this kid came for his own magic, and the matter became easy at once. If he didn't know his motive, it would be difficult to control it. Granny Tang is a greedy person, but Xiaoruo's conditions have nothing to do with money. If Xiaoruo wants a lot of gold, she might get angry, but if she just wants to learn magic, then she really doesn't care much. Magic doesn't cost money. Granny Tang had many students who learned magic before, but those disciples were all those who worked for her died. Therefore, Rumors such as none of the witch's disciples have a good end have also flowed out. Granny Tang can accept Xiaoruo's conditions. Compared with the huge amount of gold that the boy can earn for himself when he comes to the soup house, these conditions are trivial. Learning magic, there is no problem, as long as you can make money for me, enough money, magic, status, all can be given to you. According to what Xiaoruo said, Granny Tang revised the contract, and a new contract flew in front of Xiaoruo, not only the points mentioned by Xiaoruo before, but in order for Xiaoruo to sign the contract, and even some other harsh terms, Granny Tang also modified a bit. Compared with the previous one, this contract looks much more reasonable. It's so realistic. I hope we can cooperate happily. Xiaoruo signed the contract, although in his perception, the shackles of this contract can be broken as long as he uses the power of reality to break through. Pleasant cooperation. Granny Tang also nodded. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I can break the dimensional wall. Author, Zhou Zhijumiao. Chapter 129. I signed it. After signing his name on the contract in Xiaoruo's hand flew up and flew straight into Granny Tang's hand. Next to Xiaoruo, 3 ugly pets with human heads raised by Granny Tang kept beating, scaring Tom on Xiaoruo's shoulders into Xiaoruo's collar. Xiaoruo patted Tom's body, and squinted at the 3 heads. As if feeling the unkindness in Xiaoruo's eyes, the 3 heads immediately jumped away. They are so bullying and fearful. It's signed, let me see, Granny Tang took the flying contract, glanced at the signature on the contract, nodded, and smiled again. Xiaoruo? This name doesn't sound very nice. In the soup house, just change your name, from now on, you'll be called Xia. With a flick of Granny Tang's finger, the word Ruo flew up from the paper in the name on Xiaoruo's signed contract and disappeared into the air. This is also Granny Tang's method, depriving the name, which is how she dealt with Chihiro and Beilong in the original work. There is a rumor in the soup house that people who forget their names cannot find their way home. Granny Tang also wants to use this to restrict Xiaoruo, but another purpose of Granny Tang is to test, can Xiaoruo break her own magic? When Xiaoruo watched his signature being revised in the contract, something important seemed to disappear in his mind. My name is Xia. At that moment, Xiaoruo suddenly felt that Xia was her real name. He had completely forgotten his real name. However, he had seen the original work, so he naturally knew that it was Granny Tang's magic. After understanding the tricks, he modified his memory and made himself forget his real name. Now that he experienced it for himself, he realized that it was terrifying. This kind of magic is invisible. This magic is too perverted, there must be some restrictions. Xiaoruo frowned, and glanced at the contract. He guessed that the key to this magic of Granny Tang should be his signature, only through the name he wrote down. Only by using the medium can we use this medium to launch brainwashing techniques, which is a holistic technique. The old woman was really dishonest. The power of reality was activated, and Xiaoruo injected the power of reality into his brain. Baiu. There was another sound as if the magic formula had been cracked. Xiaoruo cracked the brainwashing technique that Granny Tang had just done to her. At the same time, she also remembered her name. Xiaoruo smiled and glanced at Granny Tang. Her tone was flat. I'm sorry, I still like to use my original name. My name is Xiaoruo, Granny Tang. I hope you don't use such tricks next time. The signature Ruo that had disappeared into the air reappeared and flew back to the contract. The magic was broken again. Granny Tang's face became a little more serious. At this moment, she finally realized that the human being in front of her was different from the subordinates she had manipulated casually before, and her magic had no effect on him. I don't know if it is good or bad for the soup house to have such an extra guy, but Granny Tang is the owner of the soup house after all. For her, this is just a little trouble. It seems that I have recruited a great man, said Granny Tang, leaning back on the chair and taking a puff of cigarette. It's just cooperation. I believe that you won't be disappointed, mother-in-law. Hope so. Xiaoruo, this is the moment when she has officially joined the soup house. It is still daytime, and the soup house is not open yet, but all the employees in the soup house are in a mess. In the soup house, most of the male employees are frog monsters with huge faces, and most of the women have weird faces. Of course, there are also many beautiful banshees, such as Xiaoling. Now, they all exploded because of a new news that came from above. Have you heard? Granny Tang let a human work in the soup house? Humans, how is it possible? How is it possible for humans to work like this? Even if it is the order of Granny Tang, I don't want to work with humans. That's right, the smell of humans is too bad, I don't want to work with humans. That's right, we are a soup house to entertain the gods, how can we let lowly creatures like humans come in and work? When that human dares to work with me, I must teach him a lesson. No matter how these soup house employees discussed, Xiaoruo followed Granny Tang and took the elevator from the top floor to the bottom. At this moment, Xiaoruo had already changed into the soup house clothes. It was given to him by Granny Tang. Xiaoruo's clothes are different from those of the employees on the ground floor of the soup house. The clothes on her body are azure blue kimono clothes with mysterious patterns on them, which look much more noble than ordinary employees. The difference in clothing is the difference in identity. Soon, the monster employees of the soup house were gathered by Granny Tang. The soup house is considered a big company in this fantasy world. There are many employees at the bottom, and there are hundreds of monsters in total. And began to introduce Xiaoruo in front of all the employees. But when talking to the employees at the bottom, Granny Tang's tone became much stricter. Listen to me, the person next to me is Xiaoruo who just joined the soup house. You will call him Mr. Xia from now on. Remember, he will be the top chef of the soup house in the future. If anyone dares to disrespect him, if I find out, just wait to be turned into black charcoal and then go to the boiler like briquettes. After hearing Granny Tang's words, the monster staff below fell silent. Regarding the reaction of the employees below, Granny Tang naturally didn't care about it. She turned her head to look at Xiaoruo, and her tone became kind. Follow me, I'll take you around the soup house. Thank you, Granny Tang, Xiaoruo replied politely. Granny Tang seemed to be very concerned about talents, and took Xiaoruo around some of the facilities and structures of the soup house. At the same time, I also took Xiaoruo to the kitchen and ingredients room of the soup house. In fact, other subordinates can introduce these to Xiaoruo, but Granny Tang still chose to come by herself. This will be your workplace from now on. Of course, it's good to let other people do ordinary cooking. You are only in charge of luminous cooking. Although we receive a large number of god guests every day, there are still not many distinguished guests. If the distinguished guest comes, I will send someone to notify you. Well, Xiaoruo said that she understood. After that, after introducing the kitchen, Granny Tang took Xiaoruo to some other places in the soup house. Generally speaking, the soup house is a super hotel with hot spring facilities, which is specially used to entertain the gods. Generally, the hotel has some service soup houses, and the most famous soup house is their exclusive medicinal hot springs. It is definitely a great enjoyment to be able to take a dip in the hot spring soaked from a kind of noble medicinal material. Moreover, this world is a fantasy world. The medicated hot springs specially used for gods must have unusual medicinal materials. If this kind of medicated bath is used for ordinary people, what effect will it have? Even if it can't be reborn, there will always be the effect of strengthening the body. Xiaoruo is thinking, should I get some medicinal materials here and use them for my family members? Xiaoruo took a look at the hot spring water in that big pool, and was a little moved. Granny Tang seemed to have seen Xiaoruo's thoughts, and couldn't help but strike, "Don't think too much, employees are not qualified to bathe in hot springs, even you are the same, these are for the gods. Herbs are very precious, and these are not things you can enjoy. Employee not eligible? Is it okay to give money?" Xiaoruo turned her head to look at Granny Tang. "As long as you pay the bill, you are a guest. You can take whichever medicinal bath you want here." Granny Tang immediately changed her face when she heard that Xiaoruo could pay. He. A greedy and miserly old woman. I can break the dimensional wall. Author, Zhou Zhezi Jumiao. Chapter 130. Granny Tang just briefly introduced the facilities of the soup house to Xiaoruo, and then she became a little impatient, so she stretched out her hand and conjured a scroll out of thin air. With a wave of her finger, the scroll flew into Xiaoruo's hands. There is a simple basic magic recorded in this scroll, which can be regarded as a reward for you in advance. You should learn to comprehend it by yourself first. If you don't know it, you can come to the top floor and ask me. Of course, when you earn me a certain amount of money, I will give it to you. More magical. Thanks. Xiaoruo put away the scroll in her hand. Granny Tang watched Xiaoruo put away the scroll, forced a kind smile on her face, matching the creases on her face. There was an indescribable terror. For talents, Granny Tang also knew that she had to give some sweetness first. Of course, Granny Tang also thought carefully. Although she gave Xiaoruo a basic magic, it was also one of the most difficult basic magics, and it was not so easy to learn. In the clauses, I only said that I would teach him magic, but I didn't say that I would definitely teach him. When this kid hits a wall and wants to learn this magic, he will definitely come to me. At that time, he can still control him. Then I have something else to do, so I'll go first. Granny Tang wanted to leave. Okay, mother-in-law, go slowly. Well, you can take a look around, the soup house will only open at night, and I will send someone to call you then. After speaking, Granny Tang left. Hello, Mr. Xia. Hello, Mr. Xia. After Granny Tang left, when Xiaoruo was strolling around the soup house alone, all the monster staff around said hello to Xiaoruo with low eyebrows. It seemed that none of the monsters minded that he was a human being, probably because of Granny Tang's attitude. Well, they all seemed to want to please Xiaoruo. Facing these monsters who greeted, Xiaoruo just nodded slightly in response. But what makes Xiaoruo strange is that he has been here for so long, but he has not seen Beilong, who is the hero in the animation and Granny Tang's disciple. This situation made Xiaoruo a little confused, so Xiaoruo asked someone where Granny Tang's disciples had gone. Disciples? Granny Tang doesn't have any disciples. Xiaoruo asked the monster with a flattering smile on his face. Although it was a little strange, he still answered Xiaoruo's question. No. Yes, Granny Tang used to have disciples, but that was a long time ago, and she hasn't recruited any new disciples recently, the monster who was asked honestly replied. Well, I see, Xiaoruo nodded without any change in the expression on her face. Sure enough, the world has changed a bit compared to the original. The white dragon disappeared. In other words, Beilong has not yet worshipped Granny Tang as his teacher. Could it be a matter of timeline? Or in other words, the system cancelled the existence of the male protagonist Beilong, and now I am learning magic with Granny Tang, and let myself complete the task of Beilong as the male protagonist. If the timelines don't match up, Xiaoruo won't know when the heroine will be able to arrive at the soup house, and the time to complete the task will be uncertain, but the system won't come too early if I think about it, so I have to wait a few years or something. We can only take one step at a time. In order to integrate into the soup house, Xiaoruo wandered around the soup house alone and observed some other entertainment facilities. Although it is not working time, the surrounding employees seem to be very busy. Even Sioruo saw several employees making signs. Looking at it from a distance, Sioruo saw the words glow, cooking, and God on the signboard. It seems that Granny Tang's movements are quite fast. Sioruo saw Xiaoling on the way. She was taking care of Qiansun in the soup house, that nice big sister. She was working hard mopping the floor, and she didn't come over to say hello to Sioruo like other employees, she just looked after her. Busy with her own affairs, Sioruo didn't talk to her. Most of the soup houses are basic employees. The only one with a high status is a humanoid monster with a red hat and heavy makeup on his face. Staff. But he couldn't order Sioruo. Just now, Granny Tang just gave a general introduction. When Sioruo went to see it by herself, she found that there are quite a lot of entertainment in the soup house. In addition to normal hotel services, there are places for dancing, performances, and singing, and even accompanying services. The service is quite diverse. And although this world looks completely different from the real world, the level of technological development in it is not bad, like a combination of fantasy and technology. At least, there is a tool like a telephone in the soup house. In terms of hot springs, Sioruo looked at the signs hanging outside the hot springs. There are various hot springs inside. The signs say longevity soup and Shenxian soup. There are various introductions. It seems that the hot springs, the effect is really powerful. When you leave, you can collect a wave of medicinal materials for soaking in the hot springs here. The soup house is really too big, and it took Sioruo a lot of time to go around. Finally, Sioruo returned to the room that Grandma Tang arranged for herself. It's spacious, and there is a big bed in the middle that looks good. This room is also a high-rise in the soup house, and the windows can be opened to see a distant view. Although there is still a big gap with Granny Yotang's room on the soup roof floor, it is much better than Chihiro and Xiaoling's multi-person dormitory room. At least you don't have to sleep on the floor. Tom, I'm going to work here in the future, Sioruo couldn't help but sighed. I won't be able to go back in a short time, and I don't know how long I will stay here. During this time, we are the only ones left to depend on each other. Meow. Tom rolled his eyes, jumped onto the bed, and lay down on the soft cushion. He felt that it didn't matter where he was, since he was a well-informed cat anyway. By the way, I almost forgot, Granny Tang gave me a magic scroll. Sioruo patted her head, took out the magic scroll that Granny Tang gave her just now, and opened it. The magic scroll is written in Japanese, and Sioruo knows it, which is okay, and it fits the world view. Sioruo glanced at the magic on the scroll, which introduced a magic called Fengxingshu. Fengxingshu sounds quite powerful. Sioruo continued to read. The wind travel technique. The magic introduced in the scroll is a magic that can control the wind. The content is mainly with the help of wind. However, this magic mainly acts on the body or objects. It is very gentle and has little lethality. It can act on the body and use the power of the wind to accelerate movement and running. It can also act on the object and use the power of the wind to reduce the weight of the object. Simply put, harness the power of the wind. The complete form of wind travel can even control the wind to make oneself fly in the air, so it is called wind travel. It sounds like a good magic. Sioruo remembers that when watching a movie, Beilong led Kingsun into the soup house. It seemed that Beilong used this technique to bring Kingsun into the soup house. With this technique, you don't need to ride Tom's broom to fly in the future. Good magic, learned it? When Sioruo looked at the scroll, the system also gave a reminder. Ding! To directly learn the wind traveling technique, consume 2000 reputation points. 2000 points, 1,000 times more than the consumption of learning skills in the real world, but the calculation of the system is like this: in line with the laws of reality, the skills that ordinary people in the real world can be learned with less prestige. If it is the real world, unreasonable fantasy skills will consume a lot of reputation. The more unreasonable, the more consumption. 2,000 reputation is not too much for Xiaoruo, although he can gain 300 reputation points a day, and can get it together in 7 days, but upgrading to LV3 has already consumed all the reputation. Xiaoruo, LV3, 1310/20,000. Since the prestige is not enough, Xiaoruo plans to learn it by himself first, to see if he can learn the magic in the scroll directly, and then use the prestige to learn it in seconds when he can't learn it, or when he has difficulty learning it. Xiaoruo sat on the chair holding the scroll, read the scroll several times, and only started to practice after memorizing the spells and contents inside. After 5 hours of practice, Xiaoruo had some understanding of Feng Xin Shu. About there. Xiaoruo exhaled a sigh of relief, a beam of light burst out in her eyes, and she seemed to have gained a lot. He lightly stretched out a finger, tapped a piece of white paper on the table in front of him, then concentrated all his mental power, and tried to use the wind to lift the white paper in front of him according to the steps in the wind travel technique. Rise. Call. A gust of wind that was so weak that it was almost imperceptible appeared in this closed room. The extremely weak breeze slowly lifted the piece of paper in front of me. Although the piece of paper was trembling, as if it would fall off in a second, Xiaoruo had indeed learned this magic. What a genius! Getting started with the magic in just 5 hours is genius. After that, Xiaoruo used Feng Xin to control the piece of paper to fly up and down, having a great time playing. Meow. Tom just slept on the bed for a while, and when he woke up, he saw the owner playing around with a piece of paper. Tom was a little curious, and jumped onto the table in front of the owner, and then saw a piece of paper placed there. Magic scroll. Tom scratched it with 2 small claws, and then looked at the magic scroll as if he were reading a newspaper. Tom nodded while watching. It has also learned Japanese recently, so it can understand everything. Meow. It turned out to be this kind of thing. Tom put down the magic scroll in his hand, flicked his tail, and the whole cat slowly left the table with both feet, and floated in the air with the help of the wind. Tom was not satisfied with just floating, so the tail controlled the direction, and Tom flew in the room up. Xiaoruo put down the white paper in front of him and calmed down, but he seemed to hear a strange voice. Looking back, Xiaoruo saw a cat flying around in the room, posing in various poses in the air, swimming, running, reading, sleeping. Even when flying in the air, Tom's poses still have it looks good, and the speed is getting faster and faster. Xiaoruo. People are more annoying than cats. However, this is Tom after all, a natural magic prodigy, the almighty Tom Cat, a funny animation boss who can fly on a broom with a tap of his hind legs. No one can compare to him. Xiaoruo sometimes thinks that if he is a salted fish, he will slowly train Tom to make him stronger, and he will be able to walk sideways in the heavens by holding Tom's thigh. Of course, Xiaoruo gave up on the idea of salting fish just after he appeared. He still has some pursuits, and there is no need to eat Tom's soft rice. However, the thigh still needs to be hugged. Tom, Tom. Xiaoruo seized the opportunity and stretched out her hand, took Tom who was still flying in the air, hugged her in her arms, and stroked Tom's fur gently. Little darling, I haven't touched you for a long time, let me touch you well, Xiaoruo said to Tom in her arms like a straight man stroking the cat. Meow. Tom tried to push the master away with his little claws, with a look of disgust on his face. At night, the world finally ushered in his original appearance. As night fell, countless black shadows appeared on the street. Xiaoruo looked down from the high-rise window of the soup house and saw countless unknown figures. Some were gods, some were monsters, and some even had no idea what their bodies were. I don't know, it's just a black shadow. From the sea, many large ships appeared, and many strange creatures got off the ships. It seemed that the soup house was going to be lively. At the same time, someone knocked on the door of Xiaoruo's room, and a girl's voice came from outside the door. Mr. Xia, Granny Tang asked me to inform you that a distinguished guest has arrived. Okay, here I come. Xiaoruo tidied up her clothes, followed the maid outside the door and walked towards the kitchen. This was her first day at work, and soon, Xiaoruo arrived at her exclusive kitchen. After Xiaoruo came back from Zhonghuaziodangejia, she has never neglected her cooking skills. She cooks at home every day, studies dishes, and even improves her cooking skills a lot. Although she is best at mapo tofu, other dishes are available in with the blessing of the power of cooking. The taste can also be raised to the extreme, and it can barely emit a little light. Of course, even the dishes that Xiaoruo is not good at are completely crushed in this world, not to mention that he has Tom, who also watched from the sidelines at Chrysanthemum downstairs, and now the dishes made by it can shine. When we arrived at the kitchen, a bunch of cooks from soup houses came over. Mr. Xia, do you need our help? Just go out first, and then come in when I let you in. Yes, the chefs all backed out after hearing this. Anyway, the order they received was to listen to the one in front of them. The ingredients were all ready, and Xiaoruo made 10 dishes, but he only made his special magic mapo tofu, and left the rest to Tom. When ready, the 10 dishes were covered and pushed out. Not long after, a few monsters ran over in a panic. It seemed that something important happened ahead. Seeing their panic, it seemed that they had never seen such a scene before. The customer spent a lot of money and asked for another serving of all the dishes.